So this week we got a review.
Don't we get reviews periodically?
Very rarely.
Okay.
So anybody listening, if you want to leave a review for this podcast because you've been listening or you're new and you haven't gotten to do it yet, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And we are really happy with whatever you want to say.
Good or bad, really.
I mean, I'd prefer the good reviews, but engagement's engagement. So, do you want to hear the review that we got?
Yeah, kind of. Is it a glowing review?
If glowing means like, I don't know, red light district type situation, then maybe, but no.
That sounds not positive.
No. Okay, so it says, the title is Dysfunctional Couple Reviews Films. I feel like it's a really good tagline for us. We might want to adopt it. 2 stars. And it says, I give this podcast 2 stars and their relationship about 2 more years. So.
Well, I kind of want to know which episode he listened to and how long we've been together since that point, just as it go to hell.
Yeah,
really?
We have been, this is like season 5.
Yeah, we've been doing this for quite a few years now.
Yeah, now we did take a break for a while there, but we've been doing, at least 3 or 4 years minimum that we've been doing this podcast, probably longer.
Yeah.
We've been together quite a while. We've been married for 2.5 years now. Yeah. But we've been together longer than that, obviously, because that would be weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so weird, but
also,
hey, thanks for listening.
Someone else's dysfunction is someone else's happiness, so.
Oh, I love your dysfunction. Anyways, but yes, we wanted to share that because I did say we would always share reviews. So good, bad, or ugly, we are sharing them, keeping true to our word. But this week we are doing a horror film in light of Halloween.
Yes, it's October. Spooky season is upon us.
Yes, and we are doing a classic film that I had never seen because I am a terrible, terrible film watcher. We are doing Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
So this is exciting for me because I need to check off some more of those classic films on my list. So if you guys have classic films I need to see that you don't think I've seen, probably most of them, tweet them at me.
All of them.
Yeah, at Cinematically See. Tweet them at me. We will get to them at some point. But before we really get into it, you do have a beer. I
do have a beer. I also have another drink on standby.
You do have another drink on standby. It's an homage to one of our best podcasting friends.
One of our only podcasting friends, really. I wouldn't go best.
Oh, nice. Stork, just so you know, I appreciate you.
So the beer I have that I just cracked is Night Shift Brewing. And the name of the beer is Night Light.
Okay, so you do have another drink. What is your other drink?
So for that, I'm going to give it a 3.5, actually. It's actually pretty nice and refreshing. It's a light beer, so there's nothing there, but it's certainly better than...
what you're about to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Nancy's coffee drink.
And this was made by Stork, Besotted Geek podcast. I believe he also has a Star Trek podcast now. But we will make sure that we retweet this drink because they, I believe, made it themselves and then tweeted it at us. And what's in it?
So it's hot coffee. I didn't go with the iced coffee. And coconut rum. That's actually not bad.
Oh, wow. He was expecting to hate it. He's been whining all day.
I mean, I don't generally mind coconut in my coffee. I just usually take my coffee with a little bit of cream and sugar.
It is also 8:30 at night, so you really shouldn't be having coffee, but thank you, Stork, for letting me torture him. I appreciate you. So
I'm actually pleasantly surprised by that. It's kind of a mellow, not quite an Irish coffee or something with Baileys in it, but it's nice.
So you're saying like Stork is a good bartender for you?
I wouldn't go that far.
But anyways, thank you very much for tweeting that at us. And if anybody else has drink suggestions for future movies, we will for sure do them, even if he whines about it.
Well, before we get into the brief synopsis, I wanted to do the horror movie showdown.
Oh, we're changing up my order.
It up a little bit.
Oh, no, I feel out of sorts. Okay, so Tyler came up with the idea of doing a horror movie showdown of 5 specific serial killers, murderers.
The classic horror movie villains.
Yeah, so the 5 you chose, in order that you chose them, was Mike Myers, Jason, Freddy, Pennywise, and Chucky.
Yes.
And what we were supposed to do, tell me if I'm wrong, was rank which ones would last the longest. So number 1 would be the one who's left standing.
Yes.
And number 5 would be the first one to die. Yeah?
Correct. And it's a battle royale. It's a free-for-all. who's gonna make it.
And we don't know what each other has on the papers.
I would imagine that we have a similar list. I mean, I have to imagine we have the same last place.
I promise you we don't. I know my thought process doesn't make sense outside of my head.
Okay, so you want to give your list first?
No, I don't.
All right, so first person out for me, number 5, is going to be Chucky.
Don't have the same last person.
Chucky just sucks, and he'd get punted into outer space by any come on, it's just not even close.
Okay.
Who's your number 5?
Nope, you're gonna do your whole thing first.
Do my whole list. Next, I have Pennywise. I have a very specific thought process there because Pennywise preys on fear. I understand that he's a ancient, otherworldly being, but he preys on people's fear, and these people don't strike me as very fearful. So he's going in with a handicap. He also doesn't have any kind of weaponry or assistance. It's just his scariness, really.
Gotcha.
But he still beats the hell out of Chucky because Chucky sucks.
Okay.
Next is Freddy Krueger.
Okay. Is
I
that number 3?
I get, again, his specialty is the dream world. I don't know how impactful that would be for a lot of these people that are not really alive anymore.
Gotcha.
So I don't think most of them dream. So he's kind of, in the real world, he's not going to stack up.
Mm-hmm.
Next is Mike Myers. Solid guy. In his most intimidating and imposing, he's 6'7", 300 pounds, and super strong and almost invincible. And then lastly, the winner takes all is Jason. I just think Jason is basically functionally immortal, and he's going to take it.
Okay.
All right, let's see yours.
Can I opt out?
No.
Because this is going to turn into crap on me.
No, you have to. You have to tell me.
This is so embarrassing. I had a thought process.
Okay, well, explain your thought process. You didn't have Chucky last? How the hell is that possible?
Okay. You ready? Guys, also, if you have a ranking for this, send that to us at cinematicallycorrect@gmail.com and give us your rationale.
Or tweet it at us. That's fine.
Either way,
Yeah.
but I'm really curious what you guys have. But you're going to now see how dumb apparently I am. So what I have is, in last place, Jason and Freddy are tied. So my thought process here is they have already been in a movie together and they ended at a stalemate. So basically, they're going to try to rehash this whole war, and they're going to be so caught up in trying to kill each other and failing and being at a stalemate that they will be unable to fight anybody else in the ring. Okay, so that's that. Then I have number 3 at Mike Myers. So he is the only human of the bunch. He's probably the most likely to be killed because of his humanness. And while he does have really cool weapons and, murders that he did, like the corn slasher thing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's human. Okay.
Humanish.
Humanish. Number 2, I have Pennywise. Now, the reason I have Pennywise at number 2 is because number 1, obviously I have Chucky. And the reason I have Chucky at number 1, hold on, is because what he does is he's a serial killer whose soul went into his body. And every time Chucky dies, his soul leaves and goes and inhabits somebody else's body. And that's how it continues. And Chucky has never died. He is the only one in the group that has never died. He has always moved on to another body. So my thought process is that he will, if he does die at some point, gets punted or whatever, his body, his soul will come out and inhabit one of those killers. And even though he may kill as Jason, Mike, Freddy, any of those, it'll still be Chucky killing.
Still, no.
So,
Chucky sucks.
and I don't think Pennywise would beat him because Pennywise feeds on fear, and Chucky won't be afraid because Chucky is a serial killer who just inhabits people's bodies. So that is my thought process.
So basically the exact opposite list.
So, yeah. But I had logic. So
I can understand the Freddy versus Jason because it, I guess, was a stalemate, even though it had no right being a stalemate.
But it was.
I mean, I guess. But no, I can't see that. Also, we are going to maybe, I saw rumors that there is a Freddy Pennywise fight movie coming out in 2022.
That'd be interesting to see how that plays
So we
out.
might actually see another matchup and see if Freddy can either come out on top or if it's another dead finish.
Right. But anyways, let us know your thoughts, guys. Apparently,
I still can't believe you put Chucky. Oh my god, that is just no.
I tried to be logical. But anyways, give us that brief synopsis. Let's go.
Brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis.
A movie centers around a group of teenagers that are being dream murdered by a child pedophile murderer
Okay.
demon.
Mhm.
That's the movie.
I mean, that is the movie.
Yeah.
Although the pedophile thing is removed from the actual movie. But anyway.
Removed from this movie, and it's reinstated later on in
Yes.
his backstory.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so we go into the IMDb characters. I'm going to be honest. I don't know a lot of actors from the 80s. Like, I'm sorry. I wasn't born when this movie came out. So please don't come for me. I do know Johnny Depp. Does that count?
he's the only one that is like super famous from the list.
And he looks adorable in this movie. I just need to say.
He looks like a baby. He looks like he's 12 years old.
Yes. So I guess he's the first one I'm talking about. So he plays Glenn.
Yep.
He's not the first one on the IMDb. I went off book here. So sorry, guys. But he's who I know. His hair is adorable. He's skinny. He plays the sweet guy of the two guys that are in the film.
Is that bar really that high?
It's not. It's not. The one that doesn't rape someone is what.
There's a whole lot of problems with consent in this movie.
Yes, there is. But if you're gonna like a guy in the film, it's gonna be Johnny Depp.
I mean, the only choice that you have.
I mean, the father isn't bad, but he's also not great. There's no ringing endorsements there. He doesn't believe his daughter at all. She asks him to come save her in 20 minutes, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, honey," and then hangs up. And he's like, "I'm that crazy girl."
And then said, tell me if something crazy happens. Otherwise, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, so nice. Then there is Heather Langenkamp, who plays Nancy.
Yep.
I don't know anything about her. Do you have anything to say?
I don't have anything. I mean, she was fine in this performance. I don't think I've seen her in anything else.
No, when I looked at her IMDb, it was like all the other
Freddy movies.
Yeah, I mean, there is other things. This is Cottonmouth on here, The Bet, Portal, but none of which I've ever heard of. The only other things I've heard of were the other Freddy movies.
Right. Kind of ironically, she actually had her final audition for this movie on Friday the 13th.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's ominous.
Which is not this movie.
No.
It's a different movie.
Yes, it is.
So.
And then we do have to mention, obviously, Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's most well known for, is this movie. I mean, I
read somewhere that he was actually quite well known prior to this, but then this kind of like overshadowed.
Yeah, this is 100% overshadowed. This is his.
He was in Commune in 2021.
Yeah, he was also, I think, in Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which is actually kind of a parody of horror movies. I actually really enjoyed it, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts if we ever actually watch that movie together.
I mean, I'm afraid to share my thoughts at all after this beginning podcast here, but it's on the list. So
it is on the list.
Is there anybody else you want to talk about from there?
I mean, not really. I think those are the main characters.
Yeah, and we didn't say much about Robert Englund. There's not much to say about Freddy Krueger without like talking about the movie, so we will be talking about it. Okay, so you changed up my order, so I'm going to skip the next thing on the list. And after that, we have campiness and the acting. So we did kind of mention towards the end of the last podcast that we were going into this, well, at least I was, you'd already seen it, knowing that this type of movie, especially being older, when you're watching it for the first time, comes across as pretty campy given the time period it's from.
Given the shooting schedule and given the fact that it was 1984 and
the special effects.
The budget wasn't there and they had trouble getting the funding for this movie and the studio almost went bankrupt and this movie saved it.
Yeah. New Line Cinema, if I remember correctly.
Which, thank God. But I'm kind of inclined to give these movies a little bit of leeway because they're not going for the random campiness aspect and they're trying their best to put out a good product.
Yeah. I will say, honestly, so a lot of those, classic horror films, I did watch a little bit later than they came out because I wasn't born in 1984 and Halloween came out in like the 70s, I believe, 1978 or something like that. So I watched them later. I actually found Halloween probably to be the most campy of them all, where this one, while campy, I still appreciated a lot of the things that it tried to do. I know that it struggled with special effects because they weren't existent back then. Yeah. But what it did do, I thought was quite well done. And yeah, I mean, is the acting a little bit ridiculous? To our standards today, sure, but
it's not going for that serious acting Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, or just drama performance. That you're not asking for that. That's
right. So it didn't actually bother me. We do talk about on this podcast campy films that bother you.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think for me, I have a problem with the randomness for a lot of movies, like Big Trouble, especially when we watch that.
Oh no, they're gonna come for us again.
Awful movie, which is probably up there, Hall of Fame worst movie ever made. It's so bad.
Big Trouble in Little China is what he's talking about. We
have
done this on a podcast. He shit all over it. If you want to hear the awful thoughts he had, you can go ahead and listen to that. It was in our early days. Yeah. So warning on that. But yeah.
I don't think I have the problem with the campiness in this movie. It didn't bother me at all. I mean, I also did see this a while ago originally. I was not 1984, but I probably saw it when I was 13, 10.
So 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, look, are there certain special effects where I laughed? Sure. When his arms got really long using the fishing wire or whatever they said he used. Did I laugh? Sure did. Of course I did. But I knew that. I knew that I was going into it knowing that. So it didn't bother me that much. And I actually was a little bit concerned that I might be a little bit scared after the fact because which we're going to get into, the premise is more of a scary concept than some of the others where you're just kind of like, okay, like I could have ran. Like I could have run.
On the campiness part of this, I do have a question for you.
Of course.
Why is it always the case, or usually the case, that with these campy horror movies, there's at least one actor that makes it out and has like a really great career? So Halloween, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. This movie, it's Johnny Depp.
So you mean like a breakout star?
Right, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Johnny Depp is, I think, partly because he moved on to Edward Scissorhands after this, and he just, went from blockbuster to blockbuster to blockbuster. So luck of the draw there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the acting on this didn't make anyone really stand out.
Yeah, Johnny Depp wasn't Johnny Depp in this. Like that's.
No.
There was no real great acting by Johnny Depp in this movie.
No, he said he was so uncomfortable by his performance that he kept asking for reassurance. This is his first ever film.
I mean, even Texas Chainsaw, wasn't it? Renée Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey.
I don't know about Renee, but you're probably right. I don't remember, but Matthew McConaughey, yes.
The same kind of thing. They get out. I mean, I'm curious why some of these people get out of the campy movies and some people just languish. I mean, Robert Englund, this is his.
I mean, that's typecasting though, right? Like he's Freddy Krueger. Like, and,
I mean, that's
and nobody
fair.
Can see him otherwise. I mean, that's something that all actors fall into for, different reasons. I mean, I know, who was it I was just reading recently who said that they wish they never did. Hugh Grant said he wished he didn't do romantic comedies because he got pigeonholed into romantic comedies and he couldn't get out. So like that's typical to happen. But as for why actors get stuck in the campy films and they can't get out, I wonder if it's just that they don't move on to anything else to help them get out. Like they don't take those roles. They stick with what's comfortable. I mean, God, you know everything about staying comfortable.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
It's always intrigued me that it's some people, it's seemingly at random, get out of this kind of typecasting circumstance, and then others just don't.
Well, I guess we can leave that to our listeners to let us know. I mean, if only we knew a film review professor. Huh.
Yeah,
so
subtle
funny.
there.
Yeah.
That's subtle there.
The next thing we have on the list is the premise. So the premise of this, just in case you haven't seen it, I think I'm the only person left on the planet, but like just in case.
I can't imagine that there are any people listening to a movie podcast that have not yet seen this movie.
If you haven't, please stop and go watch it and then come back because clearly spoilers. But also I'm the only person left on the planet. I know this. So this is about a murderer who was originally a child molester, although that was removed, and it was more a child murderer, and the parents got together and killed him, and then he came back to haunt their children's dreams and was killing them in the dream, but if the person woke up, then he wasn't able to kill them anymore, essentially.
If you died in your dream, you died in real life.
which they say is like actual,
So
like real.
that's been a thing that I think has been a folk legend kind of thing for a long time.
Which, is it true?
Well, I don't know. I don't think
I know that like when I like get shot in my dream or something, I'm like, oh my God, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Like,
I don't know if I've ever died in a dream. I mean,
I've never died, but I've been shot for sure.
Like, I've always fallen off a cliff or like.
And you wake up before you hit the ground, right?
I think so.
I always do.
I don't really remember my dream. Like.
Oh, I do a lot of lucid dreaming. A lot of that. But I actually really like this concept. Now, you know this about me, and I'm going to say it anyways, but for a long time, I was actually writing a book. And a lot of this is kind of similar because I was writing a book about somebody who was able to go into dreams and kill people. And he was a narcissist, and there was a lot more to it. It's a lot more layered than that. It wasn't like, whatever, but he controlled the dreams by music and all of that. But it was all about everything had to be done within the dream. He couldn't do anything outside the dream. So it, to me, was kind of like really cool because it was like it went in with a lot of the things that I had. And I started writing that because of dreams that I was having. I have very lucid dreams. I'm very much able to control my dreams and do all that kind of stuff. So it was a really interesting concept to me, and I actually really enjoyed that part of it.
When I first saw it, I thought it was just such a great, different approach to a horror movie, because a lot of the movies, it's just a straight up, I mean, when they first started, it's a straight up murder, Psycho or Halloween or Friday the 13th. It's just a slasher.
Enter classic slasher film here, yeah.
And there's not a whole lot to it. It's if you can outrun the person, you're fine. There's no running. Like, if you're asleep, you're asleep, and you're dependent on someone else to wake you up. So
unless you're lucid dreaming,
right?
Which they do play with a little bit because she's able to like bring the hat out of the dream and things like that. So clearly she has some kind of ownership over what she's doing within the dream life.
She rigs up her house in reality and then goes to sleep, or she does that somehow in her dreams.
Right. So they do definitely play with that. And I haven't seen the sequels, but I have a feeling that they probably play with that a little bit more. But I don't know. I like that concept. I think I like the concept of being able to do that kind of stuff in your dreams, and, the concept of what dreams are and what they mean. Like, it just is really
it's nice to have a change from the standard. It's always refreshing to have a new concept, a new idea. I wish Hollywood would try more for that rather than just rehashing old movies or giving us the 10th sequel that we never asked for.
Yeah.
And just give us something new and original, because that's always better. It's always better.
I definitely agree. Okay, so then the next thing we have on the list is talking about the themes. So Wes Craven had said that the theme that he was going for in this film was talking about the struggles of adolescence and the fact that the faults of the parents fall on the child, and that the parents in this film were meant to be almost villain.
I think that's fair. The parents in this movie were kind of crap.
You talking about the mother? Because, whoa.
I mean, the mom is certainly crap. Glenn's father doesn't seem to care about his son. Just kind of leaves the phone off the hook.
No, because the friend was calling. He thought she was...
Well, it's his girlfriend. You don't know if she has to tell him she's pregnant or... Yeah. Like...
He seems like the typical jerk type.
Yeah, just indifferent, doesn't care about his son. He's just like, the son's going to do what I want him to do, and damn what he wants. Yeah,
but the mom was definitely worse. I mean, they show multiple times her getting, like, plastered, to the point where her daughter calls her out on it. Like, girl, maybe you should slow down the drinking. Now, her father wasn't horrible. He just didn't seem to actually take his daughter seriously or have any interest in actually fathering her. He was just kind of like, he kept saying he cared about her and whatever, but it almost felt like he was the type of dad that like showed up to be like, I'm your dad, but never do anything.
Parents got divorced and he just kind of wasn't in her life anymore.
Yeah.
Really. Like, he was in her life to impose rules and...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was nothing good there, and you could very much see that the daughter felt like she had to kind of go it alone, and she did, and she survived. She was a survivalist, as she said.
I mean, I would say arguably the most badass teenager in a lot of movies. Like, this is straight Home Alone shit.
Yeah, and she wasn't the whining typical female teenager that you saw in those movies of that time, which was nice. Like, yeah, she was complaining, but like, so would I if I'm screaming from the rooftops. Like, my friends are all dying, and it's from this dude in a freaking dream that you know about and you killed and you're ignoring me every time I explain it to the like letter of who you killed and you're pretending like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I think I'd get a little angry too. Like, you know. So anyway, I think that's a good theme though. Like I can't think of other movies that have that. Most of the other slasher films from that time, the parents aren't even really involved. Like I'm trying to think of other movies where the parents are even a role, but I'm not coming up with that. I'm thinking of Halloween right now, and I remember Jamie Lee Curtis's babysitting.
I mean, her parents were there, but minimal
at best.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's other. I mean, obviously Texas Chainsaw. They're like, oh, they're not
in Texas.
Yeah.
On a road trip. Like,
yeah, they're on a road trip. Are the parents involved in it? I don't think they are. So this is probably one of the only movies where the parents could be seen as villains.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's an interesting concept. Again, something novel and new, which is appreciated since it doesn't happen much.
I mean, even in Scream, they're in high school, in a town, but their parents don't exist. Like, they're like
having a party, like, and parents aren't.
Well, there's no parents in the entire movie, and it's the same as Halloween. That's not what you would expect in just a normal suburb.
I mean, that's what you hoped for. I know as a kid, you looked at that and you're like, they're so cool. They're so independent.
I'm so jealous. How come my parents actually are around?
Yeah. Why do I have parents?
Yeah.
Rude. Yeah. Okay. The other thing we have in here is the sexuality in this film. So I was actually shocked by this. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that's a lot of really very bad taste of... Like, in this movie, she's 15. That's really creepy. So
the beginning of the movie, when they show, what's his name? The guy with the black leather jacket?
Oh, I don't even remember.
I have it written down somewhere, but I don't know if I'm, Rod.
Yeah.
Rod Lane. So he's not a great human. I'm going to put it that way. He's dressed as a greaser, which is strange to me, but okay. So he's got the leather jacket, he's got the hair, he's got a switchblade. I don't know what he was anachronistic to...
Straight out of the 50s in 1984.
And he acted like it.
Yeah.
Like he acted like he thought he was still there, right? So they're showing them playing around or whatever, and then he puts his hand over her mouth to bring her to bed. And that made me want to bite him, frankly. Like, I felt like if a man ever did that to me, I'd bite. Now, I know that they were doing it as a playful thing, but ew. Just ew. Don't like it. And then when she got murdered, it was literally a simulated rape. Like, that's what it looked like. It was in bed. She was being thrashed around the room.
Yeah.
It looked like a rape. And I was just like, whoa. Like, I didn't know that we were getting this. I thought this was like a horror movie, not this.
Well, I think that plays into Freddy's removed persona, that he's a creepy child molester killer. And then they removed that, but they left that scene in the movie.
Well, they also left the scene where I think it's Nancy is in the bathtub and he sticks his hand up at her vagina.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, that made me extremely uncomfortable. And that's a good thing, I guess, for a horror movie to make you uncomfortable, but uncomfortable in the wrong way. Like, I wasn't scared.
Well, yeah. Like, no one wears
ew.
a bathing suit in the bathtub. And that it's one of those things where it's just an invasion of a place where you're supposed to be private for that extra creepiness factor, but it's
and they only did that stuff with the women, and I don't know how I feel about that. I get that it was supposed to make you feel unnerved and all that kind of stuff because it's a horror film and that's what you're supposed to do, but I don't know if I needed that. Consent was a problem. It just put that where it is. Johnny Depp's character, on the other hand, seemed to obey all the rules. I mean, he slept on the couch like he was being a good boy. But yeah, that made me more uncomfortable than I needed. It didn't bother you?
Oh no, it was very off-putting throughout the first part of the movie. I was just very, very inappropriate. Now,
if the pedophile part was left into this movie, do you think that it would have made sense for the plot better than it did in this instance?
I think it would have made sense. I don't think that the boyfriend needed to be that inappropriate.
No, because honestly, when they kept saying like he didn't do it, I'm like, I know, because I know what the film's about, that he didn't do it, but like, leave him in jail. I'm fine with it. Throw away the key.
It's
like, I'm supposed to care. I'm supposed to be like, save him. Like, nah.
Throw the man out.
Throw the whole man out.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably not the effect they wanted to have. I did want to mention one thing since we're here. That a problem that people have been talking about on Reddit, and it's something that I usually care about, is character development. And people were saying that there is none. Like, all the characters are static. There's no character development. And, I was thinking about it because that usually bothers me in films. And while it's kind of true, minus the main character, Nancy, she does obviously seem to progress on, like, her survivalist instincts. The rest of them do stay the same. I don't know that it bothered me because this isn't a drama, right? Like, and this isn't even a comedy where you kind of want to see that growth. I didn't want that. I wanted to see the murderer killed, like, I wasn't looking for the characters to really progress that much.
That's fair. I also would say that it was a very short span of time over a few days. And how much can a teenager change in just a few days when they're going to get murdered? Like, there's no room for them to develop from who they are to when they get murdered because it's a very narrow window.
Yeah.
It's not something that takes place over months, years, decades. It's a very short time frame movie.
Right. And the only caveat I will say here is that if you wanted me to feel bad for the victims, make your victims better people. If you don't care and it's just a matter of they murder who they murder and you're not supposed to feel something for the victims, then that's fine. But if your goal is for me to feel bad and want to, like, do something about it, make better people. That's what I'll say there.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
This is not the movie for character development. It's you're setting an unrealistic expectation, and you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed.
Yeah. Okay, so you told me to write down horror movie tropes. So what did you want to talk about with that?
Well, there's a lot of horror movie tropes that are in this movie. And in horror movies in general, I mean, she goes outside when she hears some creepy voice whisper her name alone at night.
Just never. Like, don't even, if you just hear the smallest sound and it is midnight, do not go outside by yourself.
No.
Like, at all. Like, for any reason. No. The answer is no.
Like, what is going to come out of that in a positive way? Like, even in the real world, if someone's breaking into your car, you don't know if they have a gun or a knife. Like, why would you go outside?
No, I might look out the window, and if I see something's happening, I will probably call 911 and have them do something, or at the very least, I'll wake you up. But I'm certainly not going to just walk out there and be like, excuse me, why are you in my car? Like, no, I'll die. And then you won't even know I'm dead because you'll be asleep.
Yeah.
So.
Or following the dead body being dragged through her high school. Like, what?
And she knew she was dead ahead of time. So it wasn't like she was thinking, like, oh, maybe I can save her. Like, she knew she was dead.
And she called out the dead girl's name. Like, she's not going to answer you. What?
And told no one where she was going. Like, and you also know that she was being chased by the same killer that you're being chased by. Now, you don't know for sure that's who killed her, but, like, odds are good. So.
It just really bothers me in all horror movies. For once, I want a horror movie that just has the main character behave in a normal way. And it still not work out. Like, they called the police, but they're in the middle of nowhere and the cell phones don't work. Or, like, just things where they do the right thing still wind up not working out for them.
I'm sure that movie exists. I'm sure.
I have not seen it, and I've looked for a long time.
Well, you're going to get bombarded.
Oh, please. If people can send me that movie and it is what they're advertising, I will watch that happily.
I bet you, though, it would not be as exciting because you need that little bit of, like, us yelling at the TV and be like, no, why are you doing that? Like, that's part of the experience of a horror film.
Well, it plays into that commercial where it's there, should we get in the running car? No, let's hide behind the chainsaws.
I mean, also there are people out there that are that person. There are 100% those people.
I mean, I suppose that is fair. There are a lot of very stupid people.
Yes, there are.
Very incredibly stupid people.
And we're not going to name any. We're just going to say that they exist in the world, okay? That's what we're going to do. Okay. So the last thing I have on my list before we get into our little segments is the alternate endings. So have you seen or looked at any of those?
I have not seen the alternate endings.
So there's multiple, right? Because they couldn't decide how they really wanted to end this film. But Wes Craven's preferred alternate ending was supposed to be a positive one. So it was supposed to be that Nancy is able to beat Freddy Krueger because she stops giving him power by not believing in him and is able to come out of the dream and pull him out of the dream and wake up and realize it was all just a nightmare and everything's good. So that's how he wanted it to end. He still believes to this day, or as of the writing of that article, that it was supposed to have been a happy ending. The reason that it wasn't done that way is because he wanted to leave it open for the sequels that were to come. So I'm just curious how you think you would have reacted to a positive ending after everything that had transpired.
I think a positive ending would have been better, and it would have allowed you to do a sequel because a new, fresh group of kids could start believing in Freddy Krueger after hearing the story. And then he gains power that. Like, you don't need him to be the car that takes all the kids away to their death. Right. At the end. Like, that just...
No, you could have left it where she succeeded. She did what she needed to do, and then maybe her kids end up being the ones that get traumatized, or somebody down the street hears about it.
Or just other kids that read the articles about Freddy Krueger, the murderer, and then finding out about the recent murders of the other children that died in horrible ways, where Glenn got sucked into a bed and
blood was all over his bedroom, just spouting up like a geyser.
Well, right. There's another way to set up a sequel. I've always really been annoyed by movies that will set up the sequel at the cost of the current movie. Don't worry about the sequel. Finish the movie, make it a good movie so that people want a sequel. Don't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that movies need to wrap up what they're doing, and then if there's more to be told, then there's more to be told. And if there's not, make a new movie. That's how I feel.
But it just leaves so much just a bad taste in your mouth where you're just going, really? That's the ending you're going to go with because you want to make another one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think it needed to be done. I think Wes Craven was right in the way that he wanted to end it, but unfortunately this is what we got. So you usually have like little tidbits and things you want to talk about. So do you want to do that?
I have a few. I mean, I've already mentioned that it was shot in 32 days. I did want to ask you, they chose red and green because that was the most contrasting colors.
Due to a magazine article, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that though? In
Christmas? We're talking about Christmas? Because
is it though? And then also, that's got to suck for colorblind people.
But it's Christmas colors.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I'm confused. Because if it's the most contrasting colors, then why are they Christmas colors? Like, I'm sure there's an answer. I didn't Google it because I didn't, even think about this ahead of this whole thing. But first of all, there's that. And then second of all, yes, it does have to suck for colorblind people. But I feel like they could have gone with scarier colors. I feel like red is obviously like the right choice, but then it could have gone with like orange or something, or
black or
yeah. I mean, it was originally supposed to be yellow and
red,
I think, something like that. So that would have been fine too. But the yellow would have been too happy for me. I feel like
I needed red and black would have been a great pairing. Red and green just seems out of context for me personally.
Well, it makes me think of Christmas. Yeah. So do we want me to think about Christmas morning? Because that's not going to scare me at all.
Now, what are your thoughts on how this is similar to It, where they both very much play on fear?
What do you mean? So what?
Like the villain is set up to very, very similarly torment teenagers and prey on their fear.
Yes,
and that's very different than a lot of movies where, yes, there's a fear element, but it's a guy that's going to kill you.
Right, but the fear feeds these two monsters.
Exactly. I thought, I've always been intrigued by that because it's a self-perpetuating thing. Once you're afraid of something, it's almost impossible to get unafraid of something.
Right.
And it just keeps building in your mind. And over time, it can get worse and worse and worse.
Right. Which
is just such a novel concept for me. And it's one of the reasons this is higher up on my list than some of the traditional movies, because it's a new, different concept.
Yeah, except for obviously It then comes along and
is
very heavily inspired by it. You can clearly see. Yes. I mean, so for me with It, the thing that separates it a little bit is it's a clown, which is a real fear for a lot of people.
Yes,
myself included. That it's very palpable to see, like, how am I supposed to be unafraid of something I'm afraid of aside from you? Like, if you weren't a killer, I'm still afraid of what you look like. And this, with Freddy, he's a human. I mean, I get that they tried to make him scary by making him burned, and they tried to, show the maggots coming out of him and all that kind of stuff. But like, he's a person. And I feel like that would be easier for me to be like, but you're a person. Like, yeah, horrible things happen to you, and I actually feel bad for you for that, and I could move on, you know? Where with Pennywise, it's like, I don't even care. You're a clown. Like, there's nothing rational here. You've superseded
like those kids in the woods that were wearing clown masks with baseball bats. That was all over the news a little while ago. Yeah. That's a very good way to get shot by somebody.
Yeah, seriously. Like I don't even think about it. Like, that's a real fear. He
had a bat. He's wearing a mask in the middle of the woods at 4 a.m. Yeah, I shot him. I'm not even sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I feel like it almost made it a little bit more scary, I guess is what I'm getting at.
And then my second part to that is the difference between Freddy, even Pennywise, and the other traditional silent killers, Jason and Michael Myers. Which one
Freddy is not silent.
Yeah, well, exactly. So Freddy and Pennywise will talk and make noise, and it's more in your face and insidious than just the silent person walking behind you trying to kill you.
And you want to know what is scarier?
Well, I want your opinion on which you find more scary and intimidating.
See, I think I probably find it more scary when they engage with you because that makes them real. Like when they're silent, you could almost kind of be like, okay, well, maybe that's figment of my imagination, like maybe whatever, and you can kind of separate and disassociate with that. Where when they're engaging with you, they're very real, very interactive. Like that's harder.
Well, you're also being targeted more specifically. Like,
right.
I mean, you're being targeted by the other ones, but you can play it off like, well, it's just the person that they're focused on, where he's targeting your fears and insecurities and he's going after you specifically.
Yeah, and then nails on the chalkboard is what I was gonna say, but the nails in general, like I feel like that you know what the sound is, you can it's almost like the anticipation of what could happen is worse than what would happen kind of thing. So it's like,
well, I think the setup of preying on your fear and building up to be more powerful through that fear.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, let's be honest, if we're gonna die, I want it to be silent. I want to not, I just want done, you know what I mean? I don't want like the drag on situation. So if we're gonna choose one, I'm choosing silent, you know?
All right, that's all I got for random stuff.
Okay, do you have a history minute?
Tyler's History Minute.
Sparse history minutes.
Ooh. Wow.
So
that means he has to make up for it next week, so that means they're going to be robust.
Yeah, doubtful with next week's choice. So Wes Craven based this movie on an actual phenomenon that he had heard about, which was called Asian Death Syndrome.
Okay, which is?
So he had read a story that was about refugees from Cambodia and Southeast Asia fleeing the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot, where otherwise healthy refugee men in the United States would have a nightmare and then not sleep for as long as humanly possible, and they would fall asleep and they would drop dead in their sleep.
Yikes, that's dark.
And
that's a true story?
That's a documented thing where it is now 1 out of 10,000 or 1 to 30 out of 10,000 in the affected community can suffer from this. And it's a documented thing somehow. And you can actually be genetically predisposed to just randomly dying from this.
That's terrifying. So great. Lovely.
Well, on the bright side, we are not genetically predisposed to this.
I got that from the name of the syndrome.
The other thing, which plays into this movie specifically, is the disappearance of Kevin Collins.
Okay.
So Kevin Collins was a young boy in San Francisco that went missing in February of 1984. And
same year of this movie.
Same year of this movie. The case remains unsolved. There are several child molester suspects that have not been proven or disproven.
Yikes.
But Kevin is one of the first poster childs of missing children and starting to work on how to better identify procedures for finding them and returning them to their family. He's the first child that was picture shown on a milk carton. His face was plastered all over police stations and post offices, etc. he's actually his missing poster is in this movie, and they changed Freddy's backstory to be a child murderer because they didn't want to feel like they were capitalizing on the recent headlines of a pedophiles abducting children.
Jeez, I hope that at some point it gets solved. I mean, give the family peace. I mean,
unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, that's very sad.
Yeah.
Thank you for leaving us on a sad note. So I appreciate you for that.
It's a horror movie, dear. I'm not going to come up with sunshine and rainbows. Like, that's not a thing.
You're going to have to do a comedy movie in the near future. Okay, so we do have audience ask.
Audience asks.
I was actually surprised that it wasn't as big as I expected it to be. I figured a lot of people had seen this, but the first one we have is Stork, who was our lovely drink contributor as well. So he's getting
actually not bad.
He said, "What would you do to stay awake?"
I mean,
I did want to mention the reason he's saying this. I don't think we really talked about this a lot. Is Nancy was taking Hypnol throughout the movie to try to stay awake, as well as drinking coffee from a coffee pot under the bed.
Yeah, she was drinking a lot of caffeine.
She was doing a lot of things.
I honestly don't know a good answer because I've done the whole trying to do an all-nighter in my younger days, most recently in college, probably. Mm-hmm. And I had a really bad experience with my last all-nighter, or one of my last all-nighters.
And what did you use then to stay awake?
I used the industrial-sized monsters.
Yikes.
And not lying down.
It's not good for your stomach. That's how you get ulcers.
It was not good. And then I made it through a day and a half of no sleep. And the night before I had gotten minimal sleep. And then I fell asleep while driving.
Oof.
And crashed a car. Don't do that.
10 out of 10, do not recommend.
Yeah, do not recommend operating a vehicle while you're that sleep deprived.
Yikes. Okay, so for me, truthfully, if we're talking about like realistically, I would probably just tell myself that I was going to die of a heart attack in the middle of the night and I would never go to sleep. That's just like,
or the fact that you're going to die because Freddy Krueger is trying to kill you in your sleep and then you're just not going to fall asleep.
Yeah, like for me, like I am a very scared person, so like that's going to work, right? But I do go to sleep quite early, and I did try to pull an all-nighter in my past, and I used Jolt. I also do not recommend.
Your fingertips vibrate.
Yeah, your whole body vibrates, and then when you're coming off of it, between the sugar and the caffeine, it's a terrible experience.
You feel like you were hit by a car. It's awful. And
really, like, what do we pull all-nighters for? There's nothing exciting going on in the middle of the night. There's not good TV on. Like, it's super dark. Like, you have to be quiet.
I mean, mine was for a final, but even then, I probably would have been better served having studied sooner and then gotten sleep.
Yeah. There really isn't a good reason to do it. But if I was going to do it again, I would just, scare myself. It's fine. And then Ryan Terry. So this one caused me a little bit of a Twitter faux pas. So we'll talk about it. But he says, a fascinating topic to explore is how Nancy, not Laurie Strode, is a definitive final girl. Why? Because she intentionally and ferociously fights back and isn't rescued. She's into survival.
Yeah. I will 100% agree with that. I mean, the final girl is a trope in its own right for horror movies.
Do you want to explain it a little bit in case people don't know?
What's the last person to survive in almost all horror movies is a girl. Okay. And Halloween, Freddy Krueger, I mean, all of them. Mm-hmm. Cabin in the Woods even. They make a joke of the
final girl. The
final girl. And it's almost always the innocent girl that has to go through hell and come out
the virgin, as they say in like Not
Cabin
So Scary Movie or whatever.
But they have to go through a baptism of fire to change who they are and emotionally traumatize them forever for some reason. I mean, Neve Campbell in Scream. Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of concept in every one of these movies.
Right. But Nancy actually does it.
Oh, no.
She
Home Alone's that shit, and Rambo First Blood goes out and is like, all right, game on.
Yeah, she's reading the little manual. She's like, I'm a survivalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost all of the other ones, they don't really fight. They just run and are better at running than everyone else.
Which is just strange in its own right. I mean, they always trip, too.
But they're also not better at running because they always trip or
Yeah.
they always hide in a building rather than just, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in a car and I'm going to go to a different state.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be back in a week and a half when this is over, or you'll never see me again. Goodbye.
I agree with you.
So
this one's a hard one to refute.
no, it is true, but I will absolutely agree that she's a way better last girl.
You know, I'm thinking of like newer movies, and I don't know that still holds today. Like The Final Girl, I'm thinking of Saw right now because they were on the list of the top horror villains when we looked up that list. And while that girl does take over after he's starting to deteriorate, it's a female, and she was one of his victims or whatever. That's the only thing I can think of, but she's not like the final person. So I don't know if it maintains today.
I mean, I do know that Cabin in the Woods, it did hold true, but they were kind of poking fun at that. A really terrible movie I saw that I walked out of theaters was Wrong Turn, which I think it holds true.
Okay. All right. So maybe it does.
So,
Yeah, I don't watch as many horror films recently.
well, the recent horror movies are just so bad. It's just really bad.
Well, I would like to see a good one. I know Parasite is supposedly really, really well regarded. So
I mean, I'm open to seeing more new horror movies. Train to Busan.
oh, that's not a female at the end though.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
It's the woman that takes care of the daughter after the dad dies.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember.
So
yeah. So yeah, you're right. It probably is.
It does kind of hold true.
I mean, we did just watch a video today that said that in an apocalypse, a woman would be more likely to survive statistically. So that might be why.
I mean, I think that comes down to less bad decision making
Definitely does.
and less risk taking, which is what survival is.
Yes, exactly. But I did want to say, just to kind of clear my name here, we did make a faux pas on the Twitter. Well, I made a faux pas. So admittedly, did I know who Laurie Strode was when Ryan Terry tweeted it? No, I don't remember details like that. But I did ask Tyler before I did any response, and he told me. And then I responded with a GIF, just doing a versus thing.
GIF.
Oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, it was the, I guess, incorrect GIF, but I meant to do just like a versus thing. And I am sorry the GIF is bothering you. But anyway, it was a little thing, and it made me feel really uncomfortable and embarrassed because I realized how silly I looked. So yeah, I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry I look so silly. But that is everything for our audience asks. And do you have reviews?
I do have the ratings.
Reviews.
So the Rotten Tomato film critic score is 95.
Wow, that's
This is
high
top,
for us.
top.
We don't normally do movies that high.
I mean, Paddington.
That is true. That is true.
And then the audience score is 84.
Still pretty good.
Still pretty high.
We usually are doing the 60s. So.
I mean, a lot of movies fall into that category. This is in the top Mount Rushmore Hall of Fame
this
horror
is like
movies.
the second podcast you've mentioned Mount Rushmore for different reasons.
Yeah.
But
Well, this is definitely the Hall of Fame for horror movies. It's up there,
it definitely is. Yeah.
enshrined. So it's hard to take points off. I'm gonna probably have to give it an 8.5.
That was literally my exact score. Literally.
You went first last time, so it's my turn to steal it again.
Fine.
And last time we were way different. So.
Yeah, we were.
So 8.5. I mean, there's no real deep underlying message to this movie. It's a campy, interesting take on a horror movie. It's a concept that was new and visionary, and you have to give it points for that. It's outside of the box.
Okay. Well, I was going to also give it an 8.5, rude, and next week I go first. Thank you. But I was going to do that because I really love the concept of the dream thing. Obviously, I relate to that in a deeper way, and I loved that it was different than what I'm used to seeing. It was not just, this gore fest that makes, yes, there was a lot of blood, right, for Johnny Depp's murder, but it wasn't just gore to be gore, like, some of the movies we see nowadays. So I did really appreciate that. And I really didn't find the campiness bothered me all that much. I mean,
Right.
Am I going to take off points because it was from the 80s? No, I'm not going to do that. The only reason I'm not giving it a full 10 is because I didn't really feel that much bad for the victims. And I feel like if I
Yeah.
felt more bad, I might have been more scared. But more, I kind of felt like, well, I mean, if they're gonna off someone,
Sucks to suck. I mean,
yeah, like it's, so make me care a little bit more so that I can be scared,
yeah.
or at least give me someone to relate to where I can be like, oh, that could be me.
I think it's the same thing that I had from our last movie, where it's just I didn't have. Yes, it's horrible that children were murdered, but you have to give me more. And I want that visceral kind of reaction.
Yeah, like in Train to Busan, when one of the guys died, you're like, no, I love him so much.
Well, those are always the best movies where you actually have a stake in the game. You're actually invested in the character. You've watched that person through the whole movie, and then just you're upset when things go the wrong way, or you're extra happy when they make it out. It provides for a better, deeper experience.
Yeah. So that's the only thing. I mean, I'm not taking off points for the fact that it's from the 80s. That's just silly. But yeah, that is everything that we have. But we have a movie for next week, and we're keeping with the horror theme, not necessarily because it's Halloween, but it's fallen on the right weeks.
Yeah. I think also it's a movie that I've been meaning to see for a while. It's going to be Let the Right Ones In, which is a foreign horror movie, and it's very highly regarded. I've just been meaning to see it for a long time, and figured it was time.
Okay, well, I'm interested to see it. I'm scared because it's more current, right? So likely be more scary.
It is more recent. It's not recent, but it's 2010s maybe.
Yeah, well, it still could scare me a bit. So we'll see how that goes. But that is all we have. So thank you to Jake and Athos Music for our intro and outro music. And we will be back next week with Let the Right One In.
Thank you all for listening.